Hello everyone and welcome to the New York Empoleon's Week 5 Team Builder of the GBA Season 9. We have lost a couple of heartbreaking games. So, in between weeks, we have gone ahead and prayed to RNGesus that he will bless us with at least no hacks, if not hacks in our favor, but at bare minimum, just none. I mean, honestly, that's the ideal. The goal, the dream would be to play a game that does not involve anything hacksy going on. Now, we are going to be taking on MV and the San Diego Chimchargers this week. Obviously, you guys are watching the GBA, you know who MV is, but if you have never seen him, or if you're just like, hey, I was watching this channel and I was going to hop over there next anyway, his link is in the description, as is all the coaches in the GBA, so go check that out. Make sure you do give him all of your attention when he is going through his team builder as well as his battle, because I am sure it will be a fascinating experience, and I am definitely going to check him out when his battle drops. Now, my team, I think it's good. I've made a couple of minor transaction ideas, like spitballed them. The only one that's gone through is that, I think I mentioned it last week, but if you missed that team builder for whatever reason, Crobat is now a Z user instead of Scrafty, and I've been trying to spitball some other stuff, but nothing has stuck so far. So the team is still what it is, but maybe changing at some point because, you know, that's what happens when you lose. You try to fix what's the problem, even though the problem is hacks. And there's not much I can do about that. Someone jokingly in a comment last video said that I was just going to start running Safeguard and Lucky Chant, and I think that is potentially going to start happening if this does not get better. But anyway, his team is bulky and terrifying. It is Giratina O, Lugia, Mega Diancie, Muck, Alolan, Keldeo, Bronzong, Shaman, Dugtrio, Raikou, Umbreon, and Empoleon, with Keldeo and Raikou being his two possible Z users. And obviously he has my mascot in Empoleon, he's got the Great Wall in Lugia, he's got the Great Wall in Giratina Origin, he's got the Great Wall in Muck, he's got the Great Wall in Bronzong, he's got the Great Wall in Umbreon. And of course with Keldeo and Raikou being offensive threats that can just kind of nuke something, we've got a lot to watch out for. So, on my side, we're going to be rocking out a very similar style of team to what his looks like, which is bulk on some Mons and nukes on others. First Mon up is going to be my Victini, which is going to be rocking out the Fire EMZ V-Create this week for the first time, bringing that Z move. I am going to see if I can bluff Scarf for a little while, since Scarf Victini does actually have a pretty good matchup against him, but I really can't lock myself into a move. If I can bluff Scarf, threaten something out, like the Raikou, and then Flame Charge onto that, then I am actually in a much better position, because I can Flame Charge into something like the Keldeo, Bolt Strike, kill that, he goes into something like the Muck, Fire EMZ V-Create kills that straight up from full if he is specially defensive, which I expect him to be against my team. But early game, clicking V-Create and switching out, or clicking U-Turn and switching out, are very, very free, and I can potentially bluff Scarves against something like the Bronzong, the Shaman, things that are slower than me naturally, but Scarf Victini would do particularly well against. So that is something that I'm going to be using this week, hopefully to great success. It's the first time I'm ever bringing a Z Victini in any game, but I do think it has a lot of potential this week to really just roll through his Mons. Next up, we are going to be rocking out with the Custap Berry Donphan once again. This is a little bit different justification for the Custap Berry, and honestly, it's because nothing else really helped. I considered Assault Vest, but I really wanted Rocks. I considered Pasho Berry for the Keldeo, but I don't think that's necessarily my best option. So I decided to opt for the Custap Berry, Earthquake, Rapid Spin, Knockoff, and Stealth Rocks. Knockoff is amazing against his team. A lot of times what happens is that I will click Knockoff, he will switch into the Keldeo on that, which is a pretty big risk because this thing does learn Play Rough, and if he does go Keldeo and that becomes a predictable thing, he could be worried about the Play Rough, but even Earthquake's going to do about 65% to the Keldeo. I am rocking almost max attack on this, no physical defense investment, max special defense investment. And so Earthquake is going to be hitting incredibly hard. Knockoff does about 60% especially defensive Bronzong, so that is really, really cool, since that Knockoff buffed is 60%, unbuffed is about 40%, so that should be able to take out the Bronzong. With a Rapid Spin, it should definitely be able to take it out in the middle there. And getting my Rocks up is really useful since it breaks multi-scale on Lugia, and just generally whittles down his team. His removal is pretty solid, especially against Donphan, although Lugia has to be wary of the Knockoff. But Empoleon honestly can switch in. If it has Shuka Berry, it threatens me out, and I have to worry about him defogging, getting up his own rocks, stuff like that. Empoleon doesn't have a great matchup against me, but I do think he might bring it because I am the New York Empoleons, and so I always worry about Empoleon. But Knockoff is incredibly valuable against his team, and I am just going to be able to pretty much spam it, since this thing does also switch in on the Muck. Custat Berry, again, it's actually incredibly difficult for me to activate the Custat Berry in this match because Donphan is actually going to be a pivot for most of it, which means it's going to be taking hits. 2 Earthquakes from Dugtrio or 2 knockoffs from the Muck actually do guarantee activate my Custat Berry. Additionally, if I get Toxic, I can try to play the Toxic to get me into the point where Custat Berry is going to be useful. Generally, it's actually going to be something that I can get knocked off. It's a switch into Muck. It gets knocked off. He's like, oh god, he was Custap. Or the other option is this thing gets whittled a little bit by some hits from something. Let's say, you know, a Shadow Ball from a Raikou or something like that before the Raikou switches out. And I can Earthquake, and then he forgets about the Custat Berry, and then I can get Toxic down into the range, or, you know, because I just generally assume he's going to have Toxic on some of these mons, like Muck and Lugia and Giratina, and Shaman and Bronzong and everything. Everything can have Toxic. So, if this thing is going to be statused, it is going to be whittled down. Eventually the Custat will pop, and that will give me a big free attack. Additionally, Stealth Rocks can help me whittle myself into Custap range, which again, since this is a bulky pivot, it is going to be something that's going to be switching in and out, and so that last attack can be huge to get that last laugh in there, especially if he's not thinking about it, which I'm hoping he won't be. I mean, you know, sometimes you think about Custap from Sturdy, you're like bringing it all the way down, like, okay, he might be Custap, but if it's like whittled down, usually you're not playing it like it's Custap, so I can be, you know, pretending that I'm Pasho Berry or Rocky Helmet or something like that. Next up, we have Nurgle the Dialga, which is going to be Modest Pressure and have the Draco Plate for Draco Meteor. It's going to be Trick Room, Ice Beam, and Earth Power. This is a very, very weird set. It has just enough investment and a modest nature with the Draco Plate. Draco Meteor will Oko the Keldeo under, well, I mean, not in time, but under Trick Room especially. And I can survive one attack from pretty much anything from full. Nothing. Dugtrio's EQ from Adamant doesn't Oko me. Keldeo's Secret Sword doesn't Oko me from full. Mega Diancie doesn't Oko me with an Earth Power. So I can basically take any hit. I can Trick Room, and then I underspeed all 3 of those major threats to me, since the things that are slower than me, Umbreon and Empoleon, don't really threaten me anyway. And then I can slam something with a huge Draco Meteor, a big Earth Power, things like that. If rocks are up, the Mega Diancie dies to Earth Power guaranteed. If he's even, like, if he's defensive, or, you know, if he's HP invested, he'll still die. But if they're not up, then it's a roll if he's got some investment. So I do have to watch out for that. But Draco Meteor should be able to slam into something incredibly hard. Trick Room is very, very valuable. This thing is a pretty solid check to the Lugia as well, since most Lugia don't run Earthquake. That would be incredibly interesting if he decided to go with ground coverage on his Lugia. Since, yes, it does hit my Dialga harder, but it also means he's not going to be running something else. I don't know what that would be, but I'm pretty sure he's going to be running Roost. He probably wants to run Calm Mind, since it does seem very free against my team, and I'll talk about my checks to that in a minute, but that is what it is. And he's also probably going to want to run Toxic, because the things that do switch into the Lugia most of the time that aren't the Dialga don't appreciate being Toxic. And again, that's why my Donphan is running a Custat Berry, and I've got some other tech for it as well. Next up is a pretty dedicated Lugia check, which is my Tapu Lele, which is going to be rocking out with a modest nature, but actually enough speed to outspeed a modest Giratina O, or I guess non-speed boosting Giratina O, could be Adamant. It's a lot of speed, so Lugia would have to be running a lot of speed again to outspeed me, which is fine. I don't think that's going to be the case, to be perfectly honest. And additionally, Shaman would have to run a lot of speed to outspeed me. And I don't see myself trying to outspeed a Keldeo or Raikou or Dugtrio, since I'm not Scarfed, so I'm not going to worry about it. It can bluff Scarf, but I'm not going to try that hard to do so. Taunt stops Lugia from doing basically anything. Calm Mind Wars, I may lose those, but I also may win those. If he has Psyshock, then that's annoying, but otherwise, Calm Mind Wars, you know, we can taunt him into not being able to Calm Mind. I Calm Mind a couple times, he's just attacking me, I'm doing fine, eventually I just Thunderbolt. And I've got more Calm Minds up than he does, and that's going to be where we're at. Leftovers are going to be able to help me stay healthy, relatively. And if Muck does come in, I can taunt before I switch out on the Muck, which is really incredibly useful, because then he can't recycle, he can't curse, and I do have options to switch into the Muck, going for a pretty much guaranteed knockoff in that situation, since that is what he would do. If I do taunt him, he will be clicking knockoff or switching out, but I expect the knockoff since he can take any one hit from me, and I don't want to stay in with my Lele. So that's where I go into my Donphan. I lose my Custap Berry. Oh no, I have a free Earthquake at that point. And we move on from there. Next up, we have Crobat. Crobat is going to be bulkier this week. Lots of speed, jolly nature to outspeed everything on his team up through Dugtrio, non-scarfed. And it's just going to be basically fast Toxic, fast U-turns. Infiltrator allows me to go through subs in case he does decide to run sub Lugia or sub Shaman, things like that, since I can, and Brave Bird also will go through that sub, since I can go through those with Infiltrator. Yes, I know I'm running Infiltrator and not Inner Focus again, but he actually has less flinching options than other people do, so I'm thinking it'll be okay. Toxicking things like the Raikou, the Keldeo, the Lugia, all very, very helpful to me. If he does decide to go Mega Diancie on this and it has already Mega Evolved, then I know it's already Mega Evolved. I can either click U-turn and get out of there pretty freely, or I can just Toxic doesn't actually do anything to me, so I don't have to worry about the Magic Bounce coming back my way. And then Roost keeps this thing relatively healthy. I can take a Volt Switch from full, from a Timid Raikou, Timid Life Orb Raikou, which is pretty nice. And I also outspeed that. I can take, I can't take a Power Gem from a Mega Diancie, but I actually do take Moonblast incredibly well, so I don't have to worry about too much about that. And I wanted to run Taunt on this as well for things like the Bronzong and the Lugia, but I just couldn't find a place on the set to do it. Toxic ended up just being more valuable against the Giratina, the Lugia, etc. And if he does run Aromatherapy or Heal Bell on Umbreon or Shaman, then I've just got to keep working. His team is incredibly fast, so he's got to keep fighting for it and seeing if we can get the upper hand. And finally, we do have my Vaporeon, which is another thing that is going to be able to stop the Lugia. It handles the Mega Diancie pretty well, since the attacks from Mega Diancie are doing... Moonblast for Mega Diancie at neutral is doing 27%. So we are going to be able to tank those with leftovers. That's going to be incredibly helpful. We are very specially defensive. A little bit of physical defense, just so that Secret Sword from Keldeo with a Z move is a 3-hit KO. If he is Fightinium Z, then I have to watch out for that, obviously. But since Muck can spam knockoff, or not Muck, sorry, well, Muck can as well, but Donphan can spam knockoff, and he goes to Keldeo, I know that he's probably, I'll know what item he is if he's a Z move, or if I knock off something like Specs, which would be amazing if he was Specs and I knocked it off. Scald is very free against his team. The only thing I honestly don't want to click it against is the Lugia, unless it's already Toxic, because getting a burn means that thing will be able to pretty much sit there on me forever. Even if I try to taunt it with Lele, it basically sits there forever. So Struggle War, I don't think I end up doing very well in, to be perfectly frank. But Heal Bell, Haze, and Wish are incredible support moves this week. Wish, when I force a switch out, potentially, is... because this thing does come in and force some switches like the Mega Diancie, I can Wish. Depending on what he goes into, I can either stay in and Scald and receive my own Wish, or I can pass it into whatever Mon I think is going to benefit the most from it. Haze stops Lugia, stops Mega Diancie, stops Muck, stops Keldeo, stops Raikou, all from setting up, which all do have setup. And Ditto does not have a good matchup this week, so I do think he's going to bring that setup. And then Heal Bell stops him from going for a whole bunch of Toxics on my entire team as well, so I can potentially just stop Vaporeon from being worn down, so I can go Wish, Heal Bell, and be perfectly healthy, especially if his Lugia is something like Toxic from the Crobat. We are going to be able to just kind of whittle things down. And that is going to be the whole squad this week. That's what we're going to be rocking out against Envy. His team is Bulk, so I'm going to match Bulk with some breakers. Victini and Dialga are obviously things I want to punch through, and then if I can set up with my Lele, that is obviously going to be a huge threat to his team, since Bronzong isn't safe because I could be running Shadow Ball, Muck is the really only real check that he has, and if I start getting a couple up and I can knock off the Muck potentially with its Assault Vest or its Berry, then Moonblast is going to actually be doing an appreciable amount of damage to that thing. But otherwise, I hope you guys enjoy this battle tomorrow. Go check out MV's side of the team builder, see what he's bringing against me, and I will see you guys back here next week, tomorrow, as we take on MV and the San Diego Chimchargers here in week 5 of the GBA. We are still in it, and I hope you guys are excited. Thank you all so much for watching. Take care, everybody.